had a whole bunch of family over, a bunch of cousins, a bunch of uncles, and my in-laws came over, and my little brother was in town from Calgary as well. So, just a bunch of kids running around and food and board games, and everyone rapid tested before they came over, so we were like 100% sure that everybody was good. And yeah, and then we just watched like CBC thing on the whatever that thing is, the TV, the television, and and yeah, like once the countdown was done, I was kind of like, man, thank you for coming over, everybody. It was really nice to see you.
That's awesome. Now get the hell out.
Now get the frick out.
All right. Hello, my name is Forrest Eaglespeaker from the band the Northsound from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and this is episode 99
of the Sit Down Podcast.
Of the Sit Down Podcast. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, that works.
Hey guys, these episodes of the Sit Down Podcast are brought to you by Funky Moose Records. Go to funkymooserecords.ca and shop around there. You can get all kinds of new and used records, some merchandise from past guests that we've had on the show, as well as our own podcast merch and Funky Moose Records merch.
And if you use discount code SITDOWN10, you'll get 10% off your first order.
Boom. Welcome to the show, man. We really appreciate you taking the time out to come and hang out with us for an hour. How you been,
thanks for having me.
How's freaking 2022 so far?
So far, it kind of doesn't seem like a different year. It kind of it's all sort of melding together, I guess. But it is another year, and my family is doing well. We're all healthy, and staying on top of our care as we need to, and I just taking it one day at a time, really.
Hell yeah, bro.
Good. Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think we're all in that same boat.
The only reason I know it's a different year is because we celebrated the new year. That's about it.
Did you stay up past midnight?
Yeah, way past midnight, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, I anticipated being in bed by 10, but we ended up in Saskatoon and with the in-laws, and it was a good time, so we stayed up later.
Hell yeah.
And then we stayed another night because we stayed up later.
Freaking right. So how about you?
I don't know if y'all noticed this or not, but like staying up past midnight this year was a real task. Like it was challenging for me to stay up past midnight. I remember New Year's when I was in my earlier 20s, like party didn't get going until 11 o'clock, and then, we're partying until next New Year's, it seemed like. And this year, midnight couldn't have came fast enough, honestly.
Freaking right. How late did you stay up?
Well, yeah, really. Well, we had my partner in Nevada. She's my partner in life, and also the other part of the duo of the Northsound. We had a bunch of her family come over, trying to sort of rekindle an old tradition that used to exist when her grandparents were alive. And I mean, that's one thing that kind of happens when people pass on to the other side. Sometimes things get sort of lost, and they used to have big New Year's parties, and it hasn't happened for a long time. So we bought a house in the summer, and so we figured, let's try and rekindle it a bit this year. So yeah, we had a whole bunch of family over, a bunch of cousins, a bunch of uncles, and my in-laws came over, and my little brother was in town from Calgary as well. So just a bunch of kids running around and food and board games, and everyone rapid tested before they came over, so we were like 100% sure that everybody was good. And yeah, and then we just watched like CBC thing on the whatever that thing is, the TV, the television, and and yeah, like once the countdown was done, I was kind of like, man, thank you for coming over, everybody. It was really nice to see you.
That's awesome. Now get the hell out.
Now get the frick out. Right on. Yeah, we just kind of chilled out at home too. I think there was a little bit of fireworks in town here, across the road from my house. So
Did you make it to midnight?
I think so, but it was like, what the hell? We watched a movie. I think the movie was over by like 11:30. And then Janelle kind of fell asleep on the couch. And I think I slapped on a podcast and watched that. And then I went to bed. It was pretty chill, man. Yeah. Good movie though. I watched that Don't Look Up. There's a new one on Netflix or whatever from Adam McKay. I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good, man. I like that kind of stuff. The end of the world kind of shit.
It's on my list of movies to check out. I haven't watched it yet, so please, no spoilers. But
yeah, for sure, man. I liked it.
Such a good cast. Such a good cast.
Oh, dude. I'll tell you one thing. I did not know, and this isn't a spoiler, but I didn't recognize. I knew Cate Blanchett was in it, but I didn't recognize her until like a solid 30-40 minutes into the movie. I was like, oh shit, that's her. Like, I was like, holy crap. She looked good, man. She looked really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on my list. Well, my wife and I both want to watch it, so that's rare.
Yeah.
Because I like the killing kind of movies, and my wife is more into documentaries, which is fine. But
yeah, I hear
this
that.
is one of those movies that we can watch together.
So I'm just going to tell the people who are watching or listening that the way that we got to meet Forrest was, how many months ago was that? Maybe 2 months ago. I think it was the concert.
Yeah, around there.
Was it late October?
Yeah, it was October,
maybe.
Yeah.
So we met Forrest in Saskatoon. He was he was sharing the stage with Electric Religious, and we just got a chance. We walked up to you and just kind of introduced ourselves and kind of talked to you, pretty brief, just kind of who we were. This is what's up, and see if you were interested in coming on. So, like I said, I appreciate you coming on, and I thought the show was awesome, dude. It really it hit home. It really did, because the stuff that you were saying in between songs, like I feel like I can relate, like not 100%, but like relatively close. So actually January 1st was like at midnight was my 10-year sobriety anniversary. So like the stroke of midnight. Yeah. So I'm on 10 years clean right now. So
congratulations.
I understood the message that you, like what you were talking about. I got it, man. I totally get it. And I liked it. I had a really good time, man, for sure.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, that's one of the ways. I mean, for me as a performer and as a musician, I've always been, there's so many different kind of songwriters and storytellers out there. And for me, up until this point, it's always been about sharing my truth and sharing my experiences and trying to find ways to connect people through that. And so for me to be able to get up there and even, really to even be able to be alive and on stage is a blessing. I was going, the rate that I was going, it was not, today was not guaranteed, and that show was not guaranteed. And so, each of these moments is a blessing. And to hear that, you connected with it is, that's really meaningful to me, because that's one of the whys, one of the whys behind why I do what I do is to connect with people and to, somewhat try and ease that feeling of loneliness, that whether you're an addict or an alcoholic or not, it doesn't matter. We all experience loneliness, and so that's one of the things that I try and do is, in the brief moments where you're listening and I'm performing, I want you to feel like, you have a friend in me, or maybe not a friend, but at least this guy gets it,
Yeah. Oh, and that message came out loud and clear, dude. I think, and I loved it. I had a great time, man. It was awesome.
Thank you very much.
And for me as a non-addict, is that a word? But
a normie. You're a normie.
Sure, we'll go with that. But hearing stories like that, it makes me understand what people can go through, and that there is hope for addicts, because there are addicts that are so down and so low that they don't see the light. But there are people that can do it. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what's so important about that is I'm glad that you mentioned that, you know, you yourself, who's someone who's not an addict or an alcoholic, and you can still relate to it. That's kind of an important thing to talk about as well, because, you know, what I've learned about myself as an alcoholic and an addict is that, you know, alcohol and drugs wasn't my problem. You know, it was my solution. I didn't know how to live life. And I feel like every person, um, you know, addict or not, experiences that. Like, what am I doing? Who am I? You know, where am I going? Am I, you know, that those sort of existential crises, you know, everybody can experience that. And I'm just fortunate enough to be able to find a place that helps me figure out how to live my life, you know.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%,
Awesome.
man. For sure.
So after that show, have you done any other shows?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Man, I don't think we've done any other shows since then. I think that was kind of our last show. Which was kind of the plan, I think, anyways, was we didn't really want to play any more shows for 2021, sort of set our goals and our minds on 2022. But yeah, since then it's just been working on a new record and making plans for this new year, which you know, it's a lot more difficult to make plans these days, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it. We were going to be co-hosting Clash at the Cap 2 on January 15th, and we put a pin in that for now. We ended up postponing it, which we don't have a date picked out yet. We're kind of thinking June or May or something maybe.
Yeah.
But just because, like, in light of recent events, we were like, this might not be the best time to do this. So yeah. Totally get it.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Well, and even like coming into the first couple months here of 2022, you know, we had a couple of shows lined up, and I mean, the phone calls are starting to come now about, you know, we're postponing, or which is good, you know. Like, I definitely think that we need to err on the side of safety and caution and keeping all of our communities safe. But at the same time, it is a bummer, you know. It sucks to not be able to go out there and do what I love doing. You know, it's great to come and hang out with y'all on a podcast, and it's great to jump on and talk to other people and do these other things. But I mean, at the end of the day, I started writing songs because I love performing. You know,
hell yeah,
I love writing songs because I love to be in that space and feed into energy and take energy, and you know, that whole exchange. It's something that I definitely have much more of an appreciation for now that I don't have it as accessible as I used to.
This episode is brought to you by Inspired Vapor Company. InspiredVaporCompany.com is a father-son partnership and they have 3 locations in Saskatchewan now, in Melfort, Prince Albert, and Humboldt. And their goal is to help as many people as possible quit cigarettes.
That's right. Yeah. So Kevin and Blaine Tates, father son, a couple of stand-up guys out there. They are the ones that'll be there to help you transition from vaping to cigarettes, right? If you're trying to kick the nicotine habit, or you already vape and you're just looking for some flavors of oil, all that kind of stuff, check out their website, inspiredvaporcompany.com. Everything they have is there. As well as, like what Mark said, the on-location stores, right? The 3 of them. So go to inspiredvaporcompany.com and use the promo Moose10 at checkout for a 10% discount. That is Moose10, MOOSE10. So how did you learn how to write such a great song? Like, where, like, from, like, I don't know how to word that question, but like, did anybody teach you how to write music or song, or did you kind of teach yourself?
Well, I guess like the answer is both, you know, like nobody ever really sat me down and showed me this is how you write a song. But I mean, I'm kind of I'm a student of the greats that have came before me. You know, that's how I've always looked at it is, you know, I have a hard time saying that I taught myself how to write songs, because I learned how to write songs from Steve Earle. You know, I learned how to write songs from Jason Isbell. I learned how to write songs from Matchbox 20. I learned how to write, you know, there's so many places where I learned how to write music. And I think what it kind of was I just I started off really just needing to do it. Like I can't explain it as anything other than that. I needed to write. You know, there was so much stuff. I remember I was writing songs when I was, you know, when I was like 10, 11, you know, around there. I was writing songs, and at that point I wanted to be a rapper. And I mean, it didn't really work out that way. I didn't feel that I was it was sort of like the first culture I was ever immersed in was hip hop. You know, that was the first culture I ever found a place in, and it just grew from there, you know. And then I started falling in love with guitar, and I started falling in love with these twangy sort of melodies, and then I sort of started shifting to where I am now. And I don't really know what it is, but I know that at the heart of what I do is that songwriting comes first. You know, that's the craft. I love singing and I love playing guitar and all those things, but songwriting is the number one. You know, the manipulation of language, the way to tell a story that is so close and personal to me, without telling you how to feel about it. You know, being able to write something that anybody can interpret in their own way, you know. And I feel like for me, that really is where that's where the challenge is in the songwriting, is how do I write something that is so directly personal, and leave it open for anybody else to take what they want or what they hear from it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Personal yet universal.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Muse Canada, because they've been featuring some of our podcast episodes on their website.
Yes. We want to thank you guys for that. For those of you listening out there, if you're a musician or you're, you know,
in the arts,
in the like film, music,
paint,
anything in the arts, and you guys want to connect, you don't know where you're going, what to do, who to talk to, check out Muse Canada.
For example, sorry to interrupt, but for example, you are a videographer and you need music. Then Muse can help you connect to musicians that can make music for your videos.
There you go.
Yeah.
So just stuff like that, you guys. Give them a look-see. Definitely. Thank you guys for the featured videos. 100%. Now, I guess planning for not planning for 2022, but I mean, you said that you guys are working on a record right now. Like, what kind of things can we expect on timeline for that? Like, where are you at with that? How's that going?
2022.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had a direct answer about that, but what I can say is that, you know, we're planning on rolling out a bunch of singles and some music videos, and then probably going to be having the record come out somewhere around the end of the year, is probably what we're realistically looking at. But yeah, it's kind of, the record itself is kind of a part 2 of As the Stars Explode, the record we put out in 2020. Because that whole record is about hitting my rock bottom, realizing that I have a problem, and then early days of sobriety. You know, that's what that record is. And so being the part 2 of it, what it really is now I have this new way of living, and what does the world look like? You know, what sort of colors do I see now that I missed before? You know, what kind of things am I hearing? What sort of changes have happened inside of me? And what's important to me now? And so the record it really is quite a moral record in a sense. Like, everything sort of comes down to basic virtues and basic morals that I think are important. And in a big way, they're things that I'm relearning. You know, I'm sure at one point in time I learned, you know, what kindness was, and I learned what gratitude was, and I learned what compassion was, but I didn't practice them for so long that now they are, it's like those things are like a manual transmission for me now. You know, I need to shift the gears to get there.
Right.
Know?
Yeah. Freaking rights, man. Awesome.
I'm still processing that.
It's a lot to take in for sure.
Well, I mean, I like, so are you also thinking about the next album after this one? Because if you're, you know, you have a storyline where you start with album 1 and then album 2 is a continuation of the previous one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the one after it's probably going to be like a jazz fusion death metal record.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I don't know what's coming up after. I mean, I am always writing, and I'm always, you know, but lessons that I learned from As the Stars Explode was that I personally, I need to really stay involved in the here and now. You know, it's too easy. My mind is not strong enough to be in two places at once. You know, and inevitably what happens is if I'm here and I'm thinking about what's coming next, for starters, I'm not putting my full self into what I'm doing right now. But then that opens up the doorway also for negativity and self-doubt to come in. And I'm going to start questioning one or the other, you know, because I'm going to start comparing them to each other. Mm-hmm. And so it really is important for me now to make sure that I just stay planted in what I'm doing right now. So as far as my mind is going, I'm like, I got a studio date tomorrow, and that's where my mind is at, you know?
Right. That's excellent that you mentioned you got a studio day tomorrow, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask. Like on the more, I guess, production side of things, like, do you guys like book studios? Do you do it all yourself, or can you walk me through a little bit of that process on how you do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it starts with just me, you know, this record has anyways, it started with just me. And, you know, I started writing this record about a year ago. January of 2021, I started writing this record, and I had spent probably the first like 7 months of the initial quarantine teaching myself how to be a little more proficient with my recording gear at home, so that way I could do more extensive demos. And part of it was, I mean, looking at it now, it definitely is more efficient, but it wasn't really about that. It was like, how do I kill time, and how do I not feel like I'm not doing anything, you know? For sure. And so this record, I demoed everything. Like I did all the guitars, I did all the vocals, I did all the percussion stuff, I did all the keys and stuff, and just sort of, you know, I created the blueprint for it. And then after that was done, I hooked up with my producer, who his name is Jesse Wyman. He did As the Stars Explode as well. And we sort of made a plan, and we got some really great players to come in and you know, do the things that I don't do on a high level, but they do. They came in and they did the thing. And then after all those bed tracks were done of like the drums, the bass, the keys, the pedal steel, after that was all done, since then it's just been me and my partner Nevada going in, and, you know, me getting all the guitars done the way I want. So there's lots of electric guitars, lots of acoustic guitars on it. And then after that, it goes into the vocals. So we're kind of right now, I'm like 99% done my vocals. I just got some touch-ups and things that I need to do. And Nevada is about 25% of the way done her vocals. So she's kind of the really big next step. And then, yeah, after that, then it's just mixing, mastering, all that stuff that I have nothing to do with.
Right. Freaking rights. And then, so that's going to be, sorry, what did you say his name was? The guy you met up with, the producer?
Jesse Wyman.
Oh, Jesse. So sorry. Is Jesse the one who's like mixes and masters all that stuff, or who does that?
Jesse's going to be doing some of the mixing, but we're kind of working in tandem with our label in Nashville. We work with a label called Northsound. And it's owned by her name is Crystal Shawanda. She's got one of the most badass voices that's ever been born into existence. It's ridiculous. And then she started this label, and her husband Dwayne Strobel, they're going to be sort of helping us along with the mixing process. So I think it's probably going to be like Jesse and I kind of come up with something, send it off to them, they send us their ideas, and we sort of incorporate them in, or Dwayne will do it. I'm not really sure. This is a whole new way of doing a record for me, so I'm kind of just I'm just gonna sort of let it happen and see what comes through. But the most important thing is that I'm surrounded by people who are much better at what they do than I am. And like, that's sort of always been my belief is if you're the smartest and the best person in the room, you're in the wrong room, you know?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Nice. So how difficult is that? So if you got like a lot of people contributing to the production and recording of the album or record, right? Like you said, you're bringing in people who are maybe like a little higher quality, doing the things that you can't do to get them on the tape. How difficult is that to bring that sound or that to the stage when you're on there? Because like when we saw you, there was just you, your wife, and your father-in-law, I believe, right?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny you bring that up, because I kind of was having a little bit of a crisis a few weeks ago about that specific thing. And I reached out to a good friend of mine that lives in the city here. His name's Jeff Smith, and he plays in a band called Gunner and Smith. And Jeff just has, you know, so much more experience with these sort of things than I do. And so I asked him about that, you know, because you like the way that we normally do play is it's just me, Nevada, and one accompanist, you know, usually a lap steel or a pedal steel player. And that, like, to keep it 100, is that's a financial reason. You know, it is very expensive to take a full lineup on the road, where if it's just Nevada and I and one other person, you know, that's a whole lot easier, especially if that other person's my father-in-law. You know, it's
right.
It's so much easier to do that. But so I was kind of, you know, because this, like, As the Stars Explode is very singer-songwriter. There are some songs, you know, where it is full bandy, but for the most part, it's a very singer-songwriter record. This new one is very band oriented, you know, it very much is. And I wanted to sort of go for that classic country rock sort of thing, you know, that Blue Rodeo sort of thing. Or that Jackson Brown kind of, you know, and so there's lots of layers. But when I was talking to my friend Jeff about it, what he said was, you know, because I was like, well, what do I do? Like, I'm worried. Like, do I dial things back on the record? Do I sort of? And then he was just like, no. He said, you don't need to dial anything back. He said, your responsibility is to make the best record that you possibly can, and then understand that the record and the stage are two different mediums. You know, they're two different things. And he said, so don't worry about trying to replicate it, because one, it's just not possible, because there's so much layering that goes into the studio. And second, nobody's going to even notice or care if the live sound is different than the recording. And so that kind of put my mind at ease, where I was just like, all right, that's fine. Like I can go with that, because like I said, I need to stay focused now. And even when I'm starting to bug about how do I play it live, I'm in the future already.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because all I'm doing right now is recording. We're not playing these songs live. So just chopping it up together. They're different mediums, and just kind of got to let go of the control a little bit and just let things be how they're going to be.
But that's a good thing though, because if I go to a live show, I don't want it to be exactly the same as on a record. Because who did we talk to about?
We've had this conversation a couple times.
I think
it
so.
Comes up sometimes.
Was it with I don't know who, but it's. I don't want to be in the audience and sit there and think, sounds exactly the same as at home.
Yeah.
You know? So, you know, just having the stories between songs is one thing, but if the song is presented the same but different, that's why I'm going to live shows.
Right.
Else I can.
Yeah.
Else I can just stay home.
Yeah, and put the tape in or the CD in.
Yeah.
Shit, I had a question there too.
Sorry.
I forgot what it was. It was something to do with live performing.
I thought it was funny that you were introducing the band and you were introducing your father-in-law, and he
He was
I
at the
just
other end of
walked
the
off
room.
stage. And where'd
And
he
he was
go?
gone.
He was just right here.
No, that's never happened before. Oh my god.
Yeah. In the middle of a sentence, you turn around and you could just see like, what the?
Yeah.
Where'd this guy go? Yeah. And it's funny because I'm usually, so we had a show on, I think it was September 30th. We played a show and we sort of did it as like our album release, even though it was a year after the album had come out. And we did a whole live band thing. So we played at the Broadway here in Saskatoon, and we had a 7-piece band on stage. And now, in my defense, I'm usually used to playing with 2 other people. That's it. And I started trying out this thing where I like introduce each member sort of individually between songs, rather than this one whole big thing. And it's like, and this guy on bass, woo, this guy on drums. Woo. By the end of it, the last guy just gets like the trickles of claps, So
Yeah. And it's usually the bass player too. Poor guy.
Okay, so just because you said that, so whole set, I introduced everybody in between the songs, right? And so our bass player that we have, his name's Clay Bueller. He's been with us longer than anybody else. And the last song, and we end with a song called Wild Rose Country, and it ends on these big harmonies, and it's sort of like this, it's sort of this off time sort of, you have to really pay attention, you're gonna miss the cues sort of thing. And I realized as we were coming around to the end, I was like, oh man, we're out of set. I didn't introduce Clay. And so we hit these high harmonies. The whole band was waiting to come back in. Like, I'm sorry, y'all. I forgot to introduce on bass Clay. And then everybody laughed. And then we managed to bring it back in. But yeah, the introducing people, it's more of a challenge than people think it is. Or maybe I just overcomplicate things. I don't know.
I love the, like, not banter, but the talk, like at the show that I saw you at, just the conversation, the interactiveness you had with the audience in between each song, if you're like tuning up your guitar, whatever, getting it prepped, and like, I guess the banter in between. I love that kind of stuff. Finding out like the origins of each song and hearing where did it generate from. I think I've only seen that kind of thing twice. And the second time was with you. The first time was with Burton Cummings. I saw them. There was like a show in Saskatoon that I had went to. It was like a half the stadium or whatever, or maybe a third of it. But, he was talking about, when we wrote American Woman, this is how it came into fruition. And this is what happened at that time in the world and everything. Freaking loved that show, man. That was awesome. Love to hear that. And then you were doing kind of the same thing there. And I was just, it hit me, man. I love that kind of shit.
This guy's Burton Cummings.
Yeah. He's the next Burton.
I'll make sure to put that on my I'll put that on my press kit.
The next Burton Cummings. There you go.
Yeah,
it was good. I liked it.
No, I appreciate that because I feel the same way. I really enjoy when I go see a band play or an artist or anything, and there's all these stories in between. That to me is the most memorable parts of the show.
Right. I just remembered another one I saw like that. So there was actually 3. It was Chris Cornell did that too. So when we saw him in Saskatoon, I can't remember. I'd have to ask Janelle where we saw him. But it was just him with his guitars, and he had a record player, and he was playing all his backtracks on vinyl because he liked the sound of vinyl. So he was like playing to vinyl, and then he would talk about, when I wrote this song, I remember him saying like Superman was coming out and I wrote this song for that movie and whatever. And yeah, it was good shit, man. But sorry,
wow, that's really cool.
I cut you off there. I apologize.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I was just saying like the banter, I feel like for a lot of years, what the banter was for me was like the awkward in between, let's break it up sort of thing, but there wasn't any real emphasis on it.
Yeah.
But now what it is the banter or the in-between is just as much a part of the show as the music is. They sort of go hand in hand, right? It's like you get the song, you get the story, and it's sort of, it creates a I don't know, I feel like it sort of creates a container in a way of the space.
Sure.
And I mean, one of the things that I was sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say I was worried about it, but one of the things that crossed my mind when I made this record and was going to go out and play it, I was like, you know, a lot of the topics on the record, it's very much rooted in addiction and is rooted in recovery, and a lot of it is also rooted in like, you know, oppression and systemic racism, and it's rooted in intergenerational trauma. And I mean, those are some very tough topics to go out and talk about without one feeling, making people feel like you're blaming, or, and especially to me being an indigenous person, I always have to be hyper aware of that angry Indian narrative. You know, I need to be very hyper aware of that, you know. So I was sort of thinking about it, and you know, it's, you know, talking about all those things, people can get their backs up very quickly because it's uncomfortable stuff to talk about. But I think over time, I found a really good way to do it where it was very clear that one, everything I'm talking about is not opinion. You know, these are not opinions of mine. These are just either they're facts or it's lived experience.
Yeah.
And then also two, making it very clear that what this is a non-judgmental thing. This is a non-judgmental space. All I'm doing is, in a sense, airing out my dirty laundry on stage in front of people. You know, that's kind of the way that it is. And, you know, the feedback from that sort of outline or structure, I guess, has been really great, because I feel like people feel or have felt in the past that it makes me more approachable, and it makes me easier to talk to. And then people want to come up and they want to talk to me and they want to tell me, you know, I loved what you said about this, or when you said this, that was, you know, that was my grandfather, or that was my grandmother, or that was me, you know. And one of the things though that I was not expecting was having a lot of non-indigenous people, and specifically like older white people, come up and talk to me specifically about the indigenous issues and the systemic racism and the intergenerational trauma, talking to me in ways that were like, you know, I've never heard it like that, you know, or when you sang about this, it opened my mind to see this sort of thing. Or, and so that was a really big treat for me, because I just think, you know, my mindset has always been, if I have a platform, I want to use it for good. You know, I want to use it for something, you know, and be able to start a conversation and be able to connect with people. And so this live show has really, I think, created a lot of good. I'm definitely not in a way trying to say that, you know, we beat racism, folks, and we beat addiction. No, it's nothing like that. But what it is that it's just part of the ongoing narrative, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, I got a huge sense of like that whole "you're not alone" thing out there too. Right. Like the stories that you were telling and the songs that you're playing, it's like, and you're saying it from yourself, obviously. And like, this is what I went through. This is my truth. But then there's like for me, it was so relatable. It was like, I knew exactly what you were talking about. The shit that some of the stuff that you went through, I was like, fuck, me too, man. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Right. So that it opened that door to, like, let me know again that I'm still not alone. You know, like as inclusive as I was throughout 2021, whatever, through the pandemic and isolation and all that kind of stuff, just that I'm still not alone. Like there's other people going through this shit that it was that, like that relatability aspect of it that I loved. I love that shit. So yeah.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Like, great job, man. Awesome job.
So the other side of that, have you ever had comments from, let's say, the older white person that doesn't feel comfortable talking about this racism?
Like a negative side effect
like
of
negative?
It?
You know what? I actually haven't, which is kind of a little bit mind-blowing, but there definitely has been situations that had the potential for that to happen. And so I'll just tell a little story. So me and another songwriter, a friend of mine, his name's LJ Tyson, we were out on the road together.
LJ.
You know LJ.
Yeah. Shout out.
That guy's guy's my brother, man. So we were out on the road and we were doing a couple of shows together. So, you know, very much him and I connected because, you know, well, for various reasons, but one of the things that we have in common is, you know, we both carry marginalized identities, you know, and so we're both hyper aware and very hyper cautious when we go into certain areas. And so we were playing at a bar in or it wasn't a bar, it was like a cafe in like southern Saskatchewan. And now LJ, I love LJ to death. LJ is a very aware and is very sensitive to certain situations, and also LJ is very non-confrontational, and I love that about LJ, you know. And so there's a certain song that I play, it's called This Land, and every time I play it, there's a line that I say in there, and it's probably one of the most forward, direct lines that if anybody was going to get upset about it, it would be this line that they get upset about. And the line that I say is, you know, because I'm talking in that song, I'm talking about Colton Bushi, and I'm talking about his murder and his murderer. And I say, you know, in every single city, there ain't no difference. Across the open prairie, a farmer shoots an Indian, and they pass that ignorance on down to their kids, like old dusty photographs shot through the same lens. And now it could be a very controversial line, but I mean, again, right? It's not an opinion or anything, and I'm not blaming. It's sort of it's an observation, a very factual one. And so we're playing in this cafe in southern Saskatchewan, and they have a green room, and LJ's in the back, and I'm playing this song, and he tells me as soon as I start playing the song, he kind of gets a little bit tense because he's like, okay, he knows what's coming, you know, he knows what's coming. And I play the song, and he's listening, and after the song, he hears a ruckus going on in the front. He's like, oh no, we're gonna have to fight our way out of like this small town in Saskatchewan. And I'm on stage knowing what's actually going on, and LJ pokes his head out, and there was a guy trying to give me $20, and he was really drunk and he was being really loud. They're trying to give me $20. And when we got in the car, LJ told me, he's like, man, that was like the most scared I think I've ever been at a show.
So what, he just wanted to give you a tip or something?
Yeah, he was just trying to give me $20. I was like, no, that's cool, man. That's cool. Buy yourself some more drinks. That's cool.
Love it.
Yeah. As a white person, I can't understand, you know, that kind of thought process that you have to, well, you shouldn't have to go through, but you go through. I don't know.
It's yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, it's hard to, well, just in general, it's hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're brought up a specific way and you're taught specific ways on life and whatever, and it's a complete opposite for another race or gender or whatever. To put yourself in that shoes, like, it's almost impossible to comprehend that way of life. Do you know what I mean? It's not impossible.
Absolutely.
That's not like, but it's difficult. It's difficult to do. And I don't think that anybody doing that, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, you'll ever fully get it. You just won't, because you haven't lived in those shoes.
It's just frustrating.
No matter how hard you try, you're like, it's just not going to happen.
It's frustrating to me that we even have to talk about this stuff. Why can't we just, you know, respect everybody? No matter.
Well, it's I know what you're saying. My immediate thought on that is the reason why we need to talk about it and always keep awareness on it is so that if it ever goes away, we don't do it again.
Right. Yeah. And
yeah.
Right.
But I'm thinking of the step further. It has to be normal. We shouldn't have to be talking about this. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. It is impossible to fully understand a life outside of your own, especially when we're talking about these systemic things, right? It's like you're never going to fully understand. But that's the point that I try and make, is that it's not about understanding. You know, what it is about is acknowledging, it's about respecting, and then it's about not denying the truth.
Right.
Right. Acknowledging that a different experience is just as valid as your own, and simultaneously not slipping into this guilt sort of thing, you know, because people will tend to do that. And when people start slipping into guilt, some people, they go over and they want to become some sort of savior for something, you know. It becomes sort of a complex. Or the other side is people become defensive. Well, I didn't do that, or I didn't, but and neither one of those reactions is, in my opinion, the right reaction. What the correct reaction is acknowledging and realizing the truth in it. There's a reason why truth comes before reconciliation. You know, because before we can reconcile, which is what you're sort of talking about, we're getting to this point where we all understand and respect each other. That's the reconciliation part. But before we get to that reconciliation part, we have to live in the truth part of it first. And it's really hard for the truth. It's really hard when so much of the truth has been covered up for so long.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't know.
That's a systemic thing.
Yeah, and just people saying, "Oh, there is no racism in Saskatchewan."
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if
maybe on one side of the fence.
Yeah, exactly. Depends who you talk to.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole the Colton Bushy thing. Now that you mentioned that, I knew there was something in your show that I thought could be seen as controversial, and that's kind of why I asked the question, but I didn't remember exactly what that thing was that you did in your show. But Colton Bushy is definitely the one.
Well, and you addressed it. I don't remember if you addressed that before you played the song or after, like, and you kind of spoke on that too. Like, hey, this is just like the facts. This is what happened. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's not my opinion or whatever. It's just truth. Right. I remember you saying something on, like, I'm paraphrasing there for sure, but
and of course, us talking about it now will get comments.
That's fine. Bring on the comments, man, because we don't read them anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's totally okay. Bring them on.
Yeah, well, and I try when I do that, I try and use strong language to make the point clear. You know, like, one thing that's very important to me is to ensure that, one, nobody feels like I'm pointing the finger. You know, that I'm going like, you know, you or this or your race or your class or your whatever. None of that. It's very important to me that doesn't happen. But on the other side, it's really important to me that I don't water it down. You know, so
I agree
by
100%, dude.
Yeah,
100%.
so by calling it a murder, you know what I mean? That is something that legally will not hold up in court, because he didn't get convicted of murder. But we need to call it what it is. You know what I mean? And it's also very important to point out the fact that it's like, it's okay to feel a way about this song, or it's okay to feel a way about this situation. It's okay to feel what you feel. But then the next step has to happen. After you feel what it is that you feel, you need to be able to address those things. You know what I mean? If you feel angered by something, it's not my responsibility to help you deal with that anger. It's your responsibility to figure out where that anger is coming from, because we all feel anger, you know, but anger is a secondary emotion. Something comes first. There's always something that comes before anger, you know, and so addressing what that is. And I think that we all need to do that in certain spaces. We all need to be accountable to those feelings within ourselves, because nobody is perfect. You know, nobody is perfect. And you know, we all have things that we're privileged about. You know, we all have a certain type of privilege, and it's important for us to acknowledge those things, because that is, in my opinion, how we're going to move forward to this idealistic life of respect and love, and really being able to look at each other as just another individual whom I can love as a human. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I'm going to be your best friend. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have you over for dinner. It doesn't mean I'm going to send you a Christmas card, but it means as a human being, I love you, you know?
Yes.
Yep.
Dude, I agree 100%.
Yep.
I think you said it perfectly.
Yeah. And that's why he's a songwriter.
That's right. That's exactly.
Yeah, it pays the bills right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
I see you got a bunch of guitars there sitting behind you. Are those all yours?
These are all mine. Yeah.
Right on.
Went a little crazy during quarantine. I think I started quarantine with maybe 4 guitars, and I think now I'm up to like 13 or 14 guitars.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they just show up. I don't know.
Oh
So-
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I really like them though.
Do you find it hard? Like if you had to choose 2, which ones would you say are your favorite 2 out of all your guitars?
Well, that's tough. I can narrow it down to 3 immediately off the top of my head. One is my Gibson G45, and it's one I played at the show. Is my main guitar that I played at the show, and that was actually I just bought that guitar the day of that show. Yeah, that was I bought it. I love the way it felt. I figured let's try it out on stage, and now it's my workhorse. So that guitar, I have a Fender Telecaster Thinline Elite. That is also my workhorse. I need that one. But I just bought this beautiful 1960 Gretsch double anniversary. It's been kind of hot rodded, so it's not all original. But I have a hard time. I don't know. Can I pick 3? Let's go with 3.
Sure. Let's do 3.
Okay.
Those would be your 3.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Very cool. I wonder, did you get any pictures or videos of him on stage that night?
I think so.
I might have too. You'll have to send me those because I'll put a couple in here
Of the guitars.
of the one that he bought that day for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, deadly.
Does that make you nervous when you buy a guitar and then the first time on stage, it's like, is this gonna do what I need it to do?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely it does. Especially because I have some really nice guitars, and I mean some guitars that I really love playing. So it definitely is nerve-wracking to do that, but I mean I got to do it. I mean, what at the end of the day, the way to look at it, the only person who's really going to notice is the guitar nerd in the front row. That's the only person who's going to be like, hey, I noticed that guitar sounded a little scratchy, or I mean, that neck I think is a little too big for your head. There's only going to be like 1 or 2 people in the room that notice. Other than that, it's just it's exciting though, especially like that show specifically. Like I said, I just bought that guitar, and it was such a good surprise to get on stage and play it, because it just, like I said, now it's my workhorse. It's my go-to guitar, and that was a really nice surprise.
Do you still have the guitar that you learned how to play guitar on?
I mean, I'm always learning how to play guitar. I'm a forever student.
Right.
But the first
But
guitar
your
that
first,
I ever,
yeah.
The first guitar that I ever started playing on, I don't have anymore because it wasn't actually even mine. My dad had bought it was like a Yamaha, some sort of Yamaha guitar. He bought it from my mom because she wanted to learn, and this was when I was probably about 16, because I drummed up until that point. I didn't play guitar yet, and I had I was a really bad student. I'll just put that out there. And I went, not because I was not smart, but because I was really bored, and the school system doesn't accommodate kids with ADHD. And so my marks would suggest that I was a bad student. And so, you have these, so in grade 12, you can take spares, if you can take spares, but my school was like, no, you're not allowed to take a spare, because if you do, you're going to fail. So I was like, okay. So I got thrown into a Guitar 30 class, and I never played guitar before. And so, Guitar 30, they've been playing for 3 years already. And this wonderful, incredible music teacher that I had, she just let me take a guitar and go by myself. And she was just like, you go, tell me what it is that you're going to learn, and I'll grade you on what it is that you're trying to learn. And that was one of the greatest gifts that I ever received in my life, because if it wasn't for her doing that, I wouldn't have felt compelled to pick up that guitar that was sitting in my mom's closet that she wasn't playing. And so
Right.
then it started this sort of cycle of being at school, playing these guitars that they had there, and then going home and sitting down with this guitar that my mom had. And it really wasn't long after that until I went and bought my first guitar, because I was in love with it. I think one of the first songs I ever learned how to play was what's that Matchbox 20 song? 3 a.m. by Matchbox 20.
Oh yeah.
It had this nice little do 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 do. It had this nice little finger picky thing in there, and I was like, oh, that sounds so pretty, and I wanted to know how to do it. And so it wasn't long though after I learned that song and started trying to sing, and I don't consider myself to be a naturally talented musician in any way. Like I know when I started, I couldn't play, I couldn't sing, I couldn't do anything. I refused to be, I refused to stop, and I refused to not feel good about it. And there's a lot of years where I felt terrible about it. But I refused to give up. I refused to let people tell me that I wasn't good. I refused to give into that inner voice inside of me. And a lot of it was definitely fed by ego, but that's okay, because I needed it at that point. The ego kept me safe and it protected me. And so this is my really long way of saying that, no, I don't have that guitar anymore. But I did after that buy a Taylor 110 CE, which I do have. It's somewhere over here.
Yeah, nice.
Nice.
Do you still have your guitar that you were learning how to play?
I never owned a guitar.
Didn't you? Well, there's one in the house, isn't there?
You mean this one?
Is it right there?
This one.
Yeah. Mark started, how long ago was that? A couple years ago, Mark's like, oh, I think I'm going to take guitar lessons.
Yeah.
And what'd you do? Like one class?
No.
Two?
No, it was more
No,
than
I
that.
did too.
I don't know, less than 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never took a guitar lesson. Never, ever have I ever.
Yeah. I thought it would be easier.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
It's
easy at
it's
all.
definitely due to time. I just didn't take the time to, sit down for an hour a day and pick at it.
Right. I used to think I was
Yeah.
so good at fucking Guitar Hero
Guitar Hero.
on Medium.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
so I bought that I bought Rocksmith, where you plug in like a real guitar. It's
Yeah.
basically the same game but with the real guitar.
Yeah.
And I think I played that maybe for 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and then that was about it. That's as far as I went in guitar.
That's funny. Yeah. But you're right. It really is a thing where it's like you got to make the time. And I think for me, it wasn't a thing where I ever had to make time for. I had to make time for everything else. That was sort of how it was. And I never took lessons either. But I will say that I learned a lot of guitar early on from this group of guys that I had met. Sort of, they were these really cool sort of, and I'm probably like 17, 18, and just starting to write songs, and I happened to fall into a group of these kind of just like Broadway kind of kids. They were like they all live sort of around the area, and they're always going to these open mics, and they I don't know how I ended up falling into this group, but all these people love to play like jazz standards and like R&B chord progressions, and that stuff was so mind-blowing to me, because all I knew at that point was G, C, D, A, standard chords, and these guys were doing all these crazy inverted fingerings, and I would go and I would sit with them for like hours on end, and we'd just sit in one of the guys' mom's living room and smoke cigarettes, and we would try and figure out how to play, Sunny Side of the Street. We'd figure out how to play Sunny. We'd figure out how to play Autumn Leaves, and we would figure out how to do these chord progressions. And that probably, if we're looking at lessons in an unconventional way, that was like the only time that I can really think about having lessons, was sitting down with those guys and figuring out how to do these super complex chords. And I mean, that's stuff that I don't think if I would have had that then, I don't think I'd be the guitar player that I am today.
Right.
Yep. Everybody
right.
learns different.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I am just wondering, when we're trying to find your music, where's the best place that we could find it? Like, where would you direct our listeners?
Well, if you want to just listen to it, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Bandcamp, all those things. If you want to check out some music videos, we got music videos on YouTube. All you got to do is look up the Northsound on any of those platforms, and you will find this. There's a picture of me in Nevada hanging out in a field, and that's then all of our stuff will be there.
Hell yeah. We will have the links to those in the description of this video, you guys. Do you have any like
burning questions?
No,
I asked those already.
Yeah, me too. I think we will let you go. Like I said, we appreciate you coming on the show. You are part of our family now. So anytime if you want to come on, shoot the shit, plug something, please just hit us up. The door's wide open for you and you guys. Yeah.
Have some of that taco meat.
That's exactly where I'm going. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me on. Really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Heck yeah. I'm going to. Okay. So with that, we're going to say goodbye to all the listeners and the ones watching. And if you can just stay on for a couple minutes here, that'd be great too.
Cool.
All right. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Very good. I was going to ask if we can have permission to end the episode with maybe one of your songs or music videos or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, if you want to use Wild Rose Country, that would be great.
Okay, I definitely will, for sure.
I got no